Hello YouTube. Today I thought I would try to create my first ever tutorial. The tutorial will be about creating a 360 for Facebook, a drone 360. But first I can't move on without at least mentioning my book. I have a book out, 100 and something pages. In fact, this is my book, Spectacular Isle of Man, and inside, I'll just randomly open some pages, are views from around the Isle of Man. There, that's that done. It's £18. It's available from various bookstores on the island. WH Smith's, Waterstones. It's published by Lily Publications, and they actually have it on their website for sale. I'm not actually selling it myself. It's 128 pages. Probably 95% of the images are drone images, with the other 5% being from my Canon 5D. So that's that out the way, and that's the cover that's on screen at the moment. So moving on, I'm actually going to discuss making a 360 of one that I took a while ago, but I haven't edited yet, so I'm going to go through all the stages of editing, and it's going to be this image here. Now, what do I use for creating my 360s? I've got an Apple Mac, an iMac. Details are about this Mac. There you go. It's a 2015, late 2015, 5K Retina iMac, 27-inch, 3.3 quad core, and it produces. For photography it's fine, and actually it does video perfectly well as well. There's a few annoyances with it now. It's Thunderbolt 2, and all my hard drives are Thunderbolt 3, so I've got converters. I've also got a Wacom graphics tablet, which I might not need to use today. I've also got a Loupedeck CT, which I do use occasionally for finer detail. It's pretty good for that, for changing the sliders. I can't show that on screen. That is the Loupedeck. It's probably upside down now, so if I turn it around that way, that's the Loupedeck. When I'm in, I can then go in here and I can change the highlights of these dials, and then I can, if I've got more than one image selected, I can HDR. These are all buttons. This is so I use that. Put that back up there. I've also got a gaming keyboard now, a Steel Series of some sort, and a Logitech MX Master 3 mouse. I was using the Apple Magic keyboard, this one, which is great. It was great. It served me okay for many a year, but I just came to the conclusion the keys were too small, so I've now gone for this gaming keyboard, which is a game changer really. It's got the number pad on it. The lights don't mean anything to me. I'm really not bothered by the lights one bit, but they're there. So we're back on this image. So how do I edit the image to move on? So firstly, that is the raw image as it's come out of the camera, so out of the drone. So I've just straightforward imported that. That's using a Mavic 2 Pro, and you can go into panorama settings and do a 360. It takes 25 images and it stitches them all together in camera. You can do it other ways, but that's the quick and dirty way, I would guess. Now, there is some problems with this image here where my mouse is going. Hopefully, I don't know if the mouse is moving with it, but there's not a huge amount I can do. This was taken at sunset, so it's really difficult if the sun's not directly above you to get a perfectly exposed 360, because you've got to expose it for the whole image. It doesn't adjust the exposure as it's going around. So what I do when I'm taking an image in the evening, I will set the exposure by pointing the camera straight down, and I will dial in an exposure that allows me to see the detail in the ground. That may well then mean when it does its 360, the horizon is overexposed. But if I expose for the horizon and not the ground, then what would happen is the ground would be black. You wouldn't see anything and you just wouldn't pull back that detail. So that's that. So the first thing is just to dial in some settings. So first of all, I am going to see, using my loop deck, I'm going to bring down the highlights and just see what that does to the image. So as you can see, it's dialing it down. I don't want to go, I'm not going to go all the way, because then I start to see these lines of stitching here. So this isn't how I would have a normal image, because obviously that you would expose for what you had in, but this is a 360, so it's the whole thing. So I think that's about right there. Then shadows, I'm going to try and bring up the shadows, and it's doing a good job of those. So I may well end up cranking the shadows up. Probably not going to go, I was going to go all the way, but I think just about there. That's actually then brought in, so then I can bring down the highlights. No, I'll leave the highlights for now. So now we've got more detail down here, but this is now looking a little bit more overexposed, and this area up here is not too bad. So I'm now going to add some contrast. I never go too far with contrast, but see, this is the good thing, you can do this, and you can see if I go all the way up to 100%, that makes the image look terrible. So I'll bring it back down to 0 and then go back up to where I want it, which is about, I think about 30 would do. So that's added contrast. I'm now going to add some clarity, which if I zoom in a bit, Control plus and scroll up, and then we go over to the church. By doing clarity, right, so clarity at the moment, that is 0, so that is as it is out of the camera. If I go right the way down, it makes this weird sort of pastel-y effect. If I go right the other way, it's basically well over sharpened. So what I'll do is I'll bring it down to 0, and then I'll just go up to a point where I think that's about, not going too much, which is about there. So clarity, I've only gone up by 11. Obviously, I don't know if I said actually, this is all done in Lightroom at the moment. Then in a little bit, I will move over to Photoshop. So, and this is an easy image in the sense that there's no real stitching problems. If I was taking a 360 nearer the coast, then the camera can, or the drone can really struggle stitching the sea, the horizon. So I will produce another image, another video where I talk through editing a much more complicated 360 where I've got to do a lot of corrections. Oh, lovely Nespresso coffee. Right, so now this is where we can start to get a little bit cleverer. So I've got a graduated filter, and I'm going to bring a graduated filter down from the top, and then I'm going to bring the exposure down, which darkens the sky, and then I can bring it down to a point where I think, yeah, that's about right. So that's now taking away some of the overexposure in this middle area as well. So I'm quite happy with that. And at any point I can see a before and after on my loop deck. I think it's number 8. No, it's not. Number 7 there. So that's before and that's after so far. Right, now this bottom area now is still too dark, even though I brought the shadows up. So what I'm going to do now is do a graduated filter from the bottom, like so, and then I'm going to bring the exposure up slightly, and then bring the graduation up a bit, something like that. And then while I'll see what if I bring the exposure up even more. So that brightens up the bottom. I don't know why I'm pointing at the screen, which is too much. So I'm going to bring that back down, and then I will just see if using shadows again brings anything back, and it does. So I'm going to use shadows to bring those up quite a lot again, and then I'll bring the exposure back down over the whole thing, like so. So done. Right, now before, after, before, after. So that image, if we zoom in, is pretty much getting there now. I still think the whole thing now is slightly overexposed. So I've got no graduation on now. I'm just going to try and bring the exposure down a little bit, not too far. In fact, I'll use the dials. Why is that? Oh, to exposure. I'm going to use the dials on the loop deck because I can be a little bit finer. So that's minus 25. That's something like that. Minus. So that's the whole image. As I could, if I was being really into it, try and select just these areas and try and blend them in better. But for a 360 image, on some images, if it's one of my most enjoyable 360s, then I may well go to that level. But this one, this is more of an example 360, and I might not publish it. But who knows? Basically, this area here is Braddon Church, and during the Isle of Man TT, they come around here. So this is actually part of the TT course. So they will have come down the road somewhere over here, join the road here, come along here, a full chat, then they come around here, and this is one heck of a great viewing point here. They've always put seats, in fact if I zoom in, you won't, on these steps here, I don't know if you can see them, but certainly I can see them on the screen. On these steps here, you can actually, they have seats and you can sit there and watch all the action. Right, so that's pretty much it for what I'm doing in Lightroom. I could remove some of these cars, but I'll probably do that in Photoshop. So what I'm now going to do is export this photo to Photoshop. It's actually edit in Photoshop 2021. So export, edit with the Lightroom adjustments, and that will now import that into Photoshop. In Photoshop I will add my logo, which I've created as an automated process, but I will probably show you some tricks for getting rid of some of the unsightly bits as well. Right, there you go. We're now in Photoshop. So I have got here, I can add my logo, and I can, there's no reason why I can't do that now because I'm not making any adjustments that will affect levels. So if I go into there, add logo to 360, I then just run that. I don't want to save at this point. So that's dumped my logo in the most ridiculous place, which is normal. I then Alt T to free transform, and I drag that over to the edge until that line turns pink. I drag that one over to the edge till that one goes pink, and then I move it up there till that goes pink, and I press enter. Now that logo looks weird, but I assure you once it's exported and loaded into Facebook, it actually becomes a proper logo at the top. That process of creating that logo or making my logo into that design was an absolute nightmare. Endless Google searching, YouTube videos, and eventually I did get there. But then rather than do that, import that separately, do the free transfer, all that, I've created just a little action which actually opens it, copies it in, puts it on. So it's just saved me probably a few minutes, or more to the point, it's actually saved me time remembering how I get that into the file. So that's done. Right, what I want to do now, and I wouldn't always do this, but just for the sake of this video, what I'm going to do is get rid of some of these bits that I don't like. So let me put my book out of the way and go to the graphics tablet. What I'm going to do is lasso this car like so. Didn't mean to click whatever button, I just clicked on the pen. Right, there we go. Right, then I'm going to right click and I'm going to content aware fill, and that through some little magic by the fairies inside the computer, if everything was set up right, sample all layers, there we go, sampling area overlay, auto, there we go. It's reset some of the settings, so that's done a pretty good job. There's a little line there, but I'm not, honestly, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to be too crazy about this. So if I then select somewhere else, so, and then I zoom out, the point is, at normal zoom, you wouldn't even see those black lines, albeit I am going to go back on what I've just said, and I'm going to zoom in more. Right, so I've tried another spot healing by using the lasso tool, and that's, if you look on here now, it's got rid of those black lines. And if I click somewhere else now, there, that's pretty much perfect. Now I could get rid of these vehicles as well using exactly the same method, and just to show you, I mean, this one's, I don't know, looks a bit damaged. So if we go around that one like so, then right click, content aware fill, and we'll see. So I mean, it's not perfect, and if this was a photo that was going into a book or on a website, then you probably wouldn't do it, but it gets rid of the yellow, and once you're zoomed out like so, you wouldn't even see it anyway. In actual fact, with the 360 you can zoom in, and you probably zoom in about that far, and so that area down there where I've got rid of that car looks perfect. So yeah, so while I'm at it, because of that, using that argument, what I'm going to do is zoom in more. I'm not going to worry about this one going around the tree, but I am going to get rid of these cars. This video is turning in to be quite long. So, content aware fill, and I've been meaning to make this video for a long time. Now that, see, again, it's not perfect by any sense of the word. And what you can do, the clever thing with content aware fill is, while I'm at it, clearly I don't really want, I don't want it to sample these trees. So if I get rid of those trees, that'll change what it does in that area. It's not, actually it's made it worse. Right, then I don't want this roof, because it seems to be this roof that it's picking up on, and I obviously don't want these buildings involved. This is the Joey Dunlop Foundation, by the way. So there, that's made it much better now. There, it's back now. I don't know what's going on. Right, so now I've got my brush size, so now I can actually make the brush size smaller or as needed. So we don't want this road involved, we don't want the wall involved, we definitely don't want any of the road or the tree. So now it's only sampling from actually a very quite a small area, and we don't want this bit of green here. That's not done too bad a job at all. In fact, the worst bit now isn't where the cars were. The worst bit is where I got rid of that yellow car. So, okay to that. That's pretty much gone. So if I zoom out now to a decent level, you wouldn't have even known the cars were there. And for a 360, it's really not that unsightly. Now, there's another couple of other things I want to depart from the image. And some of those, I've zoomed in so far I can't see where I'm going. Right, so there's a car there, using exactly the same technique, using my graphics tablet. We will go around that car, right click, content aware fill, bish bash bosh, gone. Take away what it's sampling. I think it's sampling a few bits that I don't necessarily want it to. Right, so now it's brought those in, so it's picking up all these white lines. I'm not worried about the white lines, get rid of those. Probably don't want to worry about the painting on there. It's made very little difference. Sampling. No, not happy with that sample at all. So, and we can actually paint in more for it to sample if we want. So let's add in that. That's better, that's darkened that back down again, so that's okay. Click anywhere. So again, it looks odd zoomed in, but if I zoom out, no, it still looks odd. So we'll try and redo it. Content aware fill. Get rid of all this. Get rid of that. I might give up on this one. Oh, that's not too bad now. So if we OK that, I mean, there's some odd little white lines there that I could actually do them individually now, like so. Right click, content aware fill. There. Okay. See, and then zoom out, and there you go. Trouble is, you could spend hours doing this, just finding things that bug you. Now, this is a garden centre here. It's not a derelict area. I think that's about it. I'm not going to worry about these cars in the distance. Don't think there's any privacy concerns of this image. Obviously, you can see down into some areas, but probably not a lot that you wouldn't see from standing up on the hill and looking down over. But equally, it's not sharp when you're zoomed in that far anyway. And I do take privacy quite seriously, and if I needed to, just as an example, this house here, what you could do is you could select an area of it, and then so let's try it. I can always, so if we select around just like that, then we add a filter, a Gaussian blur. There, that, I mean, that's extreme. But then you could bring it back like so to maybe 1 and say OK and select anywhere. So now that area has been blurred out, as to so to speak. Now, so if I go back out now to full, and from normal zoom, really doesn't affect the image too much. I mean, from that zoom it doesn't at all, but when you bear in mind that this is the 360, which allows people to zoom in, actually now that hasn't destroyed the image at all, but it would have created some extra privacy. Now, on that note, Control Plus, I don't think, if I go back, there we go, back to there, that was before. Now, and I select somewhere else, so I've got rid of the blur now, and if I zoom in, really it becomes really pixelated. There is no chance you can read number plates. There's no chance that you can see in people's windows or anything like that. So actually, on the grand scheme of things, I don't think on this occasion I'm going to leave that blur. So that's it for Photoshop. I'm going to then come out of Photoshop. I'm going to save it. that will export the image back into Lightroom, and that's it, pretty much done. So we're back in Lightroom. We've now got two versions of the same file. That's the new one, and you can see, in fact, if I then go over to the original one, why didn't it do that? There we go. Yeah, there you go. So that's before I was in Photoshop. That's after. So the cars have gone now around here and here, and my logo's on there. And then finally, from the edits that I made, that was the before and that was the after. Now, what I would then do is go to the actual image there. I would right click it, and I would export it, and I would export it to the desktop. I wouldn't put it in a folder called book. In fact, I would just drop it onto the desktop. It will go in as that file name, so it'll be Douglas 0325 edit, and then I will work out what sequence I'm in terms of the Douglas. So at the moment I think I'm probably up to, I've probably done about 30 something Douglas 360s. So this will probably then be Douglas 37. That will get dropped into a folder of 360s not previously used, and then when I eventually put them on Facebook, I will then move that file into 360s used, so that it's just me managing which ones I've previously published and which ones I haven't. So I will export that now because it's complete. I export it, if I go back into there, actually, export, I actually export in JPEG, full quality, using Adobe RGB, and do not, whatever you do not resize. This image in its exported form is the perfect dimensions that allow Facebook to display 360s. I think that off the top of my head is 6,000 by 3,000 pixels. If you change that by 1 pixel, then getting Facebook to display it as a 360 photo becomes very complicated. And even if you try to create one yourself with Facebook, a lot of the reason I use the 360s as produced straight out of the drone is because the metadata states that it's a 360. If you create your own 360 from 25 of your own files, then actually injecting that metadata, it is possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible, so the people out there watching this going, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, it is possible, but it isn't the easiest thing in the world. So the easiest thing is get your 360 produced in drone and then try to make good of it in Lightroom, Photoshop, Luminar if you've got it. I have got Luminar, but I'm not a big fan. In fact, I don't know where it is, but yeah, I have got it somewhere. That's it. Thank you for watching. This has turned out to be a lot longer than I expected, and I'm sure it's going to take me some editing. But if you like these type of tutorials, this is a new for me. It's not something, I don't necessarily see myself as being someone that sits comfortably behind a camera. But if you find these sort of things useful, then comment below and let me know. And I will do a far more complicated 360 where the horizon has been messed up, and I then go into Lightroom and I correct the horizon, not necessarily through cheating as in changing the sky or anything like that, because I'm not into that. I try to keep the image as I saw it. I will never change the sky for a fake sky, but what I will do is I will correct, like in this image, I've got no concerns about removing unsightly cars, people, if I think it's going to be a privacy concern, and equally on the more complicated 360s where the horizon has been messed up, then you can bet your dollar I am going to try and correct the horizon. I never make it perfect, but for use on Facebook I make it pretty good. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and if you like it, then I'll look to produce some more. Thank you very much.